With the tyranny and treason that we are facing in the West, it is such a blessing to live in Southeast Asia. This place offers so much, from renting a house like this where you can live in the forest for £500 a month, or the sunshine, or the fact that you can walk on the streets at any time of the day, including night, even if you're a female alone, without any worries of marauding gangs from certain countries that have been brought into your country who offer absolutely nothing in any way, not even economically, and are living off your taxes. Yes, you're paying for your own rapists and demographic replacement. That's where we've got to in the West. Absolutely horrendous. Compare that to out here, low cost of living, beautiful sunshine, friendly people, and none of these brainless animals that the small hats are imploding the Western world with, so that everyone is fearful enough to accept things like the digital ID and eventually a one world government. But also, you know, they just want to lower the IQs by, you know, essentially making everyone not like this. So, living in Asia is an amazing relief from that, and I'm so grateful. But there is one massive downside that every expat will tell you about: visas and border runs. Now, of course, I appreciate what I've just said, the situation we're in the West, but you can't even begin to compare an economic migrant to an expat. But you can start to understand why they have the system that they have when you look at the mess in the West. Because basically what they make us do is leave the country every 3 months and then they can decide whether we come back in or not. There's none of this like, my son can only eat chicken nuggets, so you can't possibly send me back to my shithole of a country that doesn't sell chicken nuggets, even though, you know, I murdered someone. And then obviously the woke judge will follow the human rights, basically control of the deep state, dressed up as human rights. Oh, it sounds so good, but really what it means is you can't deport foreign rapists. So they have a very different system here, and you know, I respect it because this country works, my country doesn't. So I'm not here to judge the way they do things or anything like that. But what I am here to do is tell you the experience from an expat's point of view, and just wonder if there's any better ways of doing it. And that's not me coming from a place of thinking I know better. It's me appreciating that this is my perspective, and my perspective is only as a foreign expat, and it's not as an Asian national. And obviously their perspective is much more important and is what matters because it's a better country. So I imagine there's some stuff I'm missing. But it does seem to me a bit of a strange system, and one that could maybe be different and still allow all the control that Asia wants when it looks around the world and sees, you know, the lack of control that Western countries have, and the fact that they are just being completely invaded and the demographics are being completely changed and it's no longer safe. And they have the ability to change it whenever they want. There's none of this... just this retardation we've got to in the West, where we're like arguing whether a brown person is an Englishman. Like, can you imagine trying to do that out here? Let's just say I had a kid out here with another English person. I had a kid out here. Would it be Vietnamese or would it be English? I mean, it's so obvious. It's so obvious when you do it that way. But we've just had so much indoctrination around this racism word, which doesn't exist anywhere out of white countries, by the way. Racism isn't a concept here. It's just nationalism. It's just obvious. I've recently released a video about me getting scammed by a landlord. And I mentioned, you know, going to the police, and it was a consideration of would this threat work. It was never something I would actually do. But as was rightly pointed out in the comments, like, you don't go to the police here as a tourist because it's the foreigner's always going to be wrong, and rightfully so. Like, whilst it can be frustrating from an expat point of view, we mean nothing to them. We are literally just here for economic reasons. There's no pretending. They're not telling their people that their culture means nothing and they need the white man to add culture to their country, or the Indian or the whatever to add, like, there's none of that. It's very much a ethos of like, can we put up with them? How many of them are you willing to put up with for the economic benefit? If we let tourists and expats in, our economy will get better. But yes, they are fucking annoying. Yes, they complain about our karaoke. Yes, they don't drive like us. They don't want us here. But they appreciate the economic side of it. So they strike this balance. And they're always willing to change it. We've just seen Thailand. You know, Thailand dabbled with Indians because it's a growing market. And oh, wow, like, there's billions of them. We can make loads of money if we let them in. So they gave them a 60-day visa-free arrival. And guess what happened? Within a few months, they reverted it to 15 days. Because they just couldn't believe, like, the things that I've been reading are 6 men going to one bar and sharing a beer between them. This rapist, drooling stare that they all do. Expecting to be able to use a go-go girl, 5 men at once, saying we want the same price and we'll just have 5 minutes each. And then just, you know, the fact they stink and they're just disgusting. So yeah, they are very much keeping this whole visa thing gives them the ability to just say yes and no, which obviously is fantastic when we see what's happening in our homelands. You know, if only. So I'm not here knocking it. I'm not here complaining. I'm just going to tell you my experience. So I recently did a visa run from Dalat, which is far away from any other borders. And usually that's not a problem because Dalat has an airport. But of course, I moved here a few days before the airport closed for 6 months. So suddenly my visa run became a 2-day ordeal and cost a total of £285. Now, bearing in mind, I live here for about £1,000 a month. And I live very well for £1,000 a month. Admittedly, I'm not going out drinking. That would add a lot to it. But I live for £1,000 a month. So almost half, I mean, a third extra of my budget every 3 months has to be spent on this. What feels ridiculous, especially when, I mean, obviously there's the whole climate change bullshit, which obviously no one watching this channel buys into, but the fact that that is the paradigm we live in, and then on top of that we've got the Agenda 2030 war, the war in Iran, so serious fuel shortages, yet they're still gonna make people use all this fuel, consume all this energy, spend all this time and money, which I think is, from their point of view, a good thing, which I'll get into in a minute, or just to come back to the same place. You know, that's the most frustrating thing. So I'm a digital nomad / expat, and I do a lot of traveling, and traveling is hard work. When you've got 36 hours of travel ahead of you, like, I hate that shit. I hate airports with a passion. I hate aeroplanes. I hate everything that comes with it, the noise, the NPCs, the LED lights, the authority, all the fucking bullshit. I hate it. But it's pretty bearable when you are going somewhere, particularly somewhere new or somewhere you want to go to. You know, you've got the adventure element. But when you're literally doing all that to just come back to where you are, it's really, like, I dreaded it for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I felt sick at the thought of what I was going to have to do, which was 2 bus journeys, one of which was a sleeper bus, notoriously awful, and 3 aeroplane journeys, all just to renew my visa. Because you can't renew a visa from within the country. You can only do it from out of the country. So I could have renewed on a 3-month visa, so I wouldn't have to do this again for 3 months, but it would have meant I had to stay out of the country for 5 days, because you can't even apply while you're in the country. So I decided not to bother with that and just get a 45-day visa on arrival, so I didn't have to stay out of the country for any time at all, really. I did 5 hours. So it's logistically, it's completely nonsensical, but from the point of view of it gives them control, it makes a lot of sense. And also it provides a whole industry. You know, you've got the sleeper bus industry, you've got the airlines, you've got the all these buses that are just completely dedicated, like these companies that run buses and limousines and even one-on-one taxis for expats doing visa runs. I mean, it's a massive industry. So I can only, right, so I am not for a minute questioning the 3-month thing or the 45-day thing or the having to renew thing, because as we've experienced in the West, migrants are a nightmare. You need to be able to completely control them and decide if you want to kick them out at any minute. I totally get that. What I don't get is why we have to do this silly 48 hours leaving the country, coming back in thing. Other than it creates industry, I really understand that. And it means we spend a lot of money. Again, the only reason we're here is for the money, like, understandably so, like, absolutely, like, who wants foreigners? No one wants foreigners. Foreigners can never assimilate. They can never be part of your culture. They can never really add anything, unless it's like, you know, the colonization days, like going to Africa and like introducing the wheel and, you know, actually building a road for them. But the Vietnamese don't need that. They are capable. So I think, you know, absolutely, totally understand the visa system, why they have it. I totally understand why they need us to spend cash. What I don't understand, so obviously I feel like now they couldn't, so now, for example, with the Agenda 2030 war and the fuel shortage, that's obviously created on purpose so that they can lock everything down and move us towards a one world government. With all that going on, it seems to me like it would make more sense to say, okay, you don't actually have to do the visa run anymore because it's just, you know, using up our little resources of petrol that we have. However, you still need to spend the money. Like the visa now costs, instead of £45, the visa now costs, I mean, my £285 is extreme because I'm so far from a border and the airport's closed. Obviously, if you were living in Ho Chi Minh, Saigon, this could be an £80. This would be an £80 trip, maybe £100. But why not just charge that for a visa? Why not just charge 100, 200 for a 3-month visa, and you get to do it in a local office, and you don't have to waste all this fuel and contribute to climate change?
Last time I spoke to you, 2014, and you sort of, you know, snatched any hope of a future from me and my family. It was doom and gloom. Has anything changed since then in your account of things?
Oh yes, the situation is far worse than it was then.
Okay. How much time does the human race have?
I can't imagine there will be a human on the planet in 10 years.
All right, so there's my thoughts on visas, border runs. Not that any of my thoughts are relevant because it's not my country and I have no say, and I don't even have an understanding. Like the idea, you know, like we're living in England now and we're getting these brown people telling us what being an Englishman is. Like, no, you're not going to tell me what an Englishman is, just like I'm not going to tell the Vietnamese how to run their country. So everything I say is just from my perspective, and no doubt is a load of bullshit. How much did it cost me? Well, I've already told you, £285. Here's the breakdown. I had to spend £20 2 nights on my rented accommodation. So I rented a horrible flat before this one in Dalat, which basically cost a tenner a night. So whilst I'm off travelling, obviously I'm still paying that. So straight away without even leaving, 20 nicker. Then I had to get a bus, a limousine, it was really nice to be fair, to Nha Trang, which is the closest airport to here. So that was a 4-hour bus journey. It was actually... This is amazing. I thought that would be the easiest part of the journey. That was actually the worst. The limousine was really nice. So this is the last 4 episodes. If you want to go back and see this, it's the last 4 episodes, maybe 5. I think 5 episodes I did it over. That was the worst bit. I got really travel sick because you're going down a mountain road from Dalat. Dalat is 1,400 altitude, 1,400 meters. Once I got to Nha Trang, I had to spend a night in Nha Trang because it's a 4-hour journey from Dalat to Nha Trang. And my aeroplane was at 10:45 in the morning, so I had to do it the day before, which meant I had to spend some money on a hotel. I got a really cheap hotel, £8. The next morning I had to get a taxi from that hotel to the airport, £3. Then I had to get my flight to Saigon, Ho Chi Minh. I booked 2 flights in one deal. So I booked the flight from Nha Trang to Saigon and then from Saigon to Phnom Penh in Cambodia. £114 altogether for those 2 flights. I was in Cambodia for 5 hours, but you still have to buy a visa there. So the cheapest minimum visa you can buy is a 30-day visa, which was $30, 25 quid. Even though I never stepped foot out of the airport. Now you could do the visa run to Laos, which gives you visa-free arrival. So you could skip that £30, but presumably the flight would be more expensive, and you'd be adding 2 hours on minimum. So for me, that's not worth it. Then I had to fly back from Phnom Penh to Saigon. I think this was the most frustrating part of the journey. You know, when I was waiting 4 hours for a plane in Saigon to Phnom Penh, to know that I was just going to fly back to the same airport. You know, it just felt so pointless and so frustrating. But it is what it is, and it's worth it to live out here instead of in utter tyranny and treason in the West. Now, the visa for Vietnam, like I say, I could have got a 3-month one and paid $25, 20 quid, or it wasn't worth me staying out of the country 5 days. Now, there is another way of doing it. You can pay an agency. So agencies obviously have contacts where they can get them done fast. So I think for about £150, you can get an agent to apply for a visa the minute you leave Vietnam, and it comes straight away, and you can come back in within hours. I believe that costs £150 to £180. But I just did the lazy, spazzed hard, I've not organised this well enough option, and just came back in, got 45 days for free. So I didn't have to pay anything for my visa, but it means I'm going to have to do all this again in 45 days. So it's like economically stupid, and in terms of, you know, it's just a fucking stupid decision. But I am stupid, so there you go. Right, so then once I was in, I've missed off the taxi there. So actually the whole cost was almost £290. So once I was in, 295 actually, the taxi was a tenner if I remember right. Once I was in Saigon Airport, this is good footage, I think this is episode 4, something like Am I Being Scammed, or Are They Trying to Scam Me? Once I was in Saigon, I had to get a taxi to the sleeper bus. That cost a tenner. Then the sleeper bus itself, from Saigon to Dalat, 11, 12-hour journey. That was the bit of the journey I was dreading the most. And it probably turned out to be the best. Just amazing. I really would recommend watching the last 5 episodes. I think they're really good. And then from the sleeper bus that dropped me at Dalat bus station, I then had to get a taxi to my house. I could have got a Grab for £1, but I just went with a taxi driver that came up to me and gave him £3, £3.50 in fact. So a total of £295 and 48 hours for nothing from my point of view. And I realise that is only from my point of view. I mean, for a new visa, which I'm very grateful for, because it means I get to spend another 45 days in this amazing country. And it is amazing, especially if you find somewhere you can live that's quiet. The one downside for me with Vietnam is the noise. And I also see the beauty of that. You know, I see the community, I see how alive they are, I see how they live as families and have a great social life. But obviously I'm not part of any of that, so I just hear the noise. So what I mean by that is karaoke. Also, it's very industrious, it's very entrepreneurial, like they work hard and they're very patriotic, you know, they're everything we're desperate to see in the West. But that means, you know, they will get up at 7 in the morning and they will work all day. So, you know, construction sites will go from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, and then the guys will sleep on the site and start again. Work every day, 7 days a week. Schools, I was living next to a school, that was every day, 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. Like, these guys don't mess about. So that can be a lot for an expat that doesn't appreciate noise. But if you can find somewhere like this where you can live out of noise, and don't get me wrong, I still hear karaoke twice a week. You know, you're never going to get away from the karaoke fully. But it's like 6 hours a week to live like this. And then the rest of Vietnam, what Vietnam has to offer, like, I'm drinking this amazing sugarcane juice now, that costs 50 pence. So good, like a natural Red Bull. It's just amazing. It's amazing. Like, I'm really, really, really grateful that we get to live here. But there's no delusions about it here. There's no pretending here. There's very much like, you know, it's very clear. Very clear, and it's right. You know, like this is Vietnam. The Vietnamese people come first. You can contribute and don't break any of our laws or rules. Don't annoy us at all. If you do, you're gone. Why can't we have that in the West, people? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Big love.